You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Park Rangers Locked On Cougs here. And the Houston Cougars take the field this weekend as heavy favorites against the West Virginia Mountaineers. They hope to honor KURT HESTER in as many ways as possible with hashtag Unbreakable and different tributes throughout the game and stadium and all of that on the field, the player, whatever, right? They're wearing all black because that was a favorite of KURT HESTER's. Rest in peace to KURT HESTER after losing his fight with cancer last weekend. Unbreakable as a tagline seems to be the mantra of the program moving forward. And I cannot think of a better way, frankly, to continue to push and fight for the fight in honor of the memory, I should say, of KURT HESTER. As they approach this weekend, Wednesday night, 9 o'clock local time, Big 12 asked teams to report their first set of player availability reports. And Houston and West Virginia came out. This is from the Big 12 page themselves. And you'll notice Houston's page is actually fairly thin. It's one of the lightest lists Houston's had thus far. You'll also notice when we talked with Paul yesterday about West Virginia side of things, like their side's not very thin. They got a lot of guys out, right? But one that stuck out to me for Houston was not necessarily Stacey Sneed being questionable, not the fact that Devin Williams has been on the out list for forever, it feels like, but Jason QUESO Brooks being listed as doubtful is worrisome. And I wonder how much plays into this weekend. But Jason QUESO Brooks has been one of the more consistent. He's played 7 of the 8 games, so I shouldn't say he played every game. But one of the more consistent options Houston's had on the offensive line. And frankly, he's held down that left guard spot for nearly every snap he's been available to play. And for Houston to be successful, as every week, but specifically this week, they're going to want to establish a run early, often, and with force. And Jason Brooks is very good at that. And this feels like a potential ding in that. Not because necessarily it's not a group effort or anything like that, but they're still working through they don't have a lot of options. This was not a group it was deeper than it was a year ago, but not a deep group to say the least, right? And so losing Jason Brooks hurts. And he's doubtful. He's not out. Doubtful, not out, but that's problematic. Now, running the football, I don't need to tell you anything, has been integral to Houston's success. You see guards pulling a lot on these QB power plays that have been integrated into the offense a whole lot. You also see them kind of as the crucial block and cutbacks about the zone read play. So when you're running zone as a running back, you're pressing the front side A gap. And if the defensive tackle tries to cross center's face, you can cut it back. Well, that's cutting off the backside guard, right? If the backside defensive tackle does not try to cross face, then you're actually going off the play side guard and picking one of his. We used to always say which butt cheek you're going to go off of, right? You're picking one side or the other of the guard to go off of. Ipso facto on both directions, play side and weak side, the guards are pretty big roles in zone blocking schemes, right? Jason Brooks being out would kind of hurt some, not just the chemistry of having guys you can rely on up there, but would also hurt because he's proven to be the better option at left guard for Houston all year long. Now, I say that to say that another thing is I think that schematically, West Virginia is also hurting when you run the football. West Virginia has been giving up, on average this season, 160 yards per game on the ground. But when they beat Pitt and beat an FCS school, in both of those games, they allowed less than 50 yards. So you look at just the 6 losses, because they are 2-6, and their 2 wins were, again, an FCS school and Pitt. They're actually giving up over 175 yards on the ground in those 6 losses. That includes both Kansas and Utah, where they gave up over 240 yards, and Ohio, not Ohio State, the University of Ohio, they gave up over 180 yards. If Houston's going to win this weekend, and I think they will, the easiest path, most visible path to doing that is going to be doing it on the ground. Now, Stacey Sneed being listed as questionable is an improvement, and frankly, 3 weeks ago when he got hurt. We heard a couple days later be a 3 week kind of injury. So we're in the window. We can expect him to maybe be back soon. I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation given what we'd heard about that injury. I also know that for what it's worth, the one of the things, like, Fritz is very open about a lot of things. The one thing he does keep pretty tight-lipped as a staff and as a program is the health of his players, both from a like keeping things private and from a schematic kind of advantage to opponents, right? He does keep these things pretty tight-lipped around the program. And so if I got a whole lot of details, going to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't put them out there till they were public anyway, out of respect for the program Willie Fritz building. But also, B, I think that they're being pretty vulnerable and putting Stacey Sneed as questionable or Jason Brooks as doubtful. We could clown on Utah, but Kyle Whittingham is not doing that at Utah, right? He's lying through a lot of these things. A lot of the time, they've already been slapped on the wrist and told not to do that a couple times. Now, I would also point out in this short report, you don't have Jamarian Burnett, so maybe you have more running back options there, and maybe Jason Brooks at questionable is available to play, and he actually ends up being a game time kind of decision. He plays the first half, you build up a lead, you pull him, you don't want him to take too many hits or whatever. I've seen, speaking of running game and running the ball down West Virginia throat, enough conversation in our comment section here or whatever about, like, do you really want to continue running the ball down people's throats with your quarterback, Conner Weigman, given the injury history he's had? And to that, I still say yes. I think, frankly, if ifs and buts were fish and nuts, no men would starve. And also, I think that, like, you can't take away what a guy's good at. Yes, the injury prone thing is he's had bad luck in the past, knock on wood, but he's running the ball effectively. He's big, he's strong, he's looking great doing it. And B, like, he's a ball player. He's tough. He's going to run. He's going to be, he's going to be kind of guy that gets in there and QB sneak and finds the extra yards. You can't take away what a guy does well. I also would point out that, like, I said I would point out a couple times. That's probably too many times in an episode. I probably hit the max on that at some point. But quarterback injuries in the run game, I feel like actually happen more often when a guy is breaking out to scramble or trying to, like, buy extra time in the pocket, and there's just a bunch of guys chasing around, was running around loose. Designed run plays when you're running the football and you have more of a intentionality behind your pads and all that kind of stuff. And frankly, you're, like, running with a purpose in a different kind of way than you're running to escape things. You see a lot less of those. And now that's not to say it can't happen. I just don't think that I'm changing the offense up dramatically from what's been working for the majority of the last, whatever that is, 4 or 5 games, just to be cautious. The point is to win the games, and you don't want to not do what you do well in an effort to do that. Now, I want to bring West Virginia one last breakdown tomorrow. So hit subscribe at the bell so you know go live for those kinds of things. Also, there were obviously big basketball recruits last weekend. Basketball season officially opens up on Monday for the men's program. Like, lots of that in the air. So hit subscribe because we're going to be pushing out some of that kind of content as well. If recruits commit, we'll be ready to go and talk about it right away. You're going to hit Locked On Cougs wherever you get your podcast each and every day. For a second listen, though, go to Locked On Big 12. Big 12 Squad Show comes out later, so make sure you check that out. Locked On Cougs is a prime member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.